Welcome to this week's Who the Folk podcast. I'm Lonnie Goldsmith, the editor of TC Jewfolk. Today we're joined by Layah Shagalow, the assistant director of Shaarim. Layah tells us what it's like to work for an organization that her mother founded and that she has seen grow from the ground up, the opening of the Gateways Boutique Thrift Shop, and what it's like to be back in Minnesota 7 years later than she expected on this week's Who the Folk podcast. Layah Shagalow, welcome to this week's Who the Folk podcast. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I feel like I'm officially a millennial now. I'm on a podcast.
Because you're on a podcast?
It's for real.
Well, I'm not a millennial. I am too old to be a millennial, but can non-millennials host podcasts? Is that a thing?
I feel like non-millennials host podcasts, and then millennials are on the podcasts. And we say a lot of things like and all that. Isn't that how this works? I don't know.
I think so. Okay. I don't know. Again, not being a millennial myself. So
I'll just throw in things like lit, and I don't know. I'll try and come up with words that sound millennial. Yeah.
Perfect. Well, you are the associate director at Shaarim.
Yes.
And both you and your mom, who founded Shaarim, were part of our Give to the Max Day extravaganza, which hopefully people saw on our Facebook page. But for people who don't know and who missed that for some reason, tell everyone what Shaarim is.
Oh, wow. So Shaarim is an organization that's been around for about 21 years, and we are your one-stop shop for any kind of disability, special needs inclusion. So we offer educational programming both within the mainstream Jewish educational system and also side stream or self-contained programming for individuals who struggle to be in the mainstream and need a little bit more support. We also have social recreational programming so that all of our participants can be a part of the Jewish community, not just in an educational setting, but as a part of everything. And we are just now getting up and running. Our grand opening is this coming Sunday, November 24th. I don't know when this is going out, so if it's after. We're already open. Come visit us. We started a vocational training and meaningful employment opportunity for individuals with disabilities as well through our Gateways Thrift Shop, which is a boutique thrift shop. So we're just... whatever you need, we're here for you. That's really who we are.
That's a lot, first of all.
Yeah.
That's a lot going on there. But you just moved back here to the Twin Cities fairly recently.
Yes.
From New York.
Finally.
What you expected was going to be a short stay in New York ended up being, a mere 7 years.
Yeah, it was 7 years, which was 7 years longer than I ever expected to be there.
So what brought you to New York in the first place if you didn't expect to be there that long?
Well, I was a young single Jewish girl, and I was living in Minnesota, and I'm pretty sure every Jewish mother in the world was just really worried about me, becoming a cat lady and dying alone. No, all of my friends were in New York at the time, and I had come back after my year in Israel, and I had spent 2 years in Minnesota working for Shaarim at the time. Okay. I actually founded our Friends and Fun program, which is our social recreational programming, and I was running our Darkeinu program. That's that self-contained Hebrew school. And everyone was like, you're going to just live under a rock if you stay here, even though I loved it so much, because that's what we Minnesotans do. We love being here. So I went off to New York to give that a shot. I decided I was going to try it for a year, and then a year turned into another year, turned into grad school, turned into a grant from the government to stay for another 2 years, turned into 3 years at a job that I also really loved. And then at a certain point, I was like, hold on a minute. How did this happen? And I had the opportunity to come back, and I grabbed it. And I was like, I am so ready to come back to Minnesota. And I'm just so happy. Yeah.
So coming back here to the organization that your mom had started, is that hard? Is it easy? I mean, obviously, it's been a part of you. You've been a part of it your entire life. Yeah. I mean, it started when you were 7, 6, 7, 8.
Yeah,
something.
I was really young.
You were young, so I mean, it's always you've seen it from literally before it started to now.
Yeah.
What's it like, sort of coming into that situation now as sort of a pretty high level employee?
Yeah. Oh, wow. That's an interesting question that I have to think about for a second.
Okay.
How much time you got, Doc? But honestly, the first word that comes to mind is it feels like coming home, because it really is. Shaarim was always like the fifth child in our house in the most incredible way. We've all been a part of it in some way, and it was really started. My mom got involved in it. Hannah got involved in it because of my sister Shayna, who really is, I guess, she's who we all have to thank for what this organization is. So I volunteered when I was in high school, even though I went away for high school. Whenever I came back, I would volunteer. And then I started working here kind of in a lower level after when I came back from my year in Israel. And then I walked away and came back. And it's always just felt like whatever I was doing, it was until I could do this again.
Okay.
So it feels like coming home. Definitely a lot has changed in 7 years. So there's a lot of learning curve. They've grown a lot and things have changed. But it's good. It feels right.
Do you think that the sort of the educational path you took, you mentioned that you were in social work sort of in undergrad. Is that what it was?
Master's, my licensed Master's of Social Work.
Okay,
and I
so
also have training in design research as well.
Do you think that path sort of is part of what led you here? Did you sort of take that path to end up back here?
Again, that's an interesting question. I think it's a little bit of both. I think that what led me to social work was the work that I had been doing up until that point. I didn't know if I was going to go to grad school. I didn't know what I was going to go to grad school for, but I had been working with this population and in this world for a while, and at a certain point that felt like the right next step to take if I wanted to continue to kind of have a broader platform to do this kind of meaningful work. So I went to grad school, and then in my position post-grad school and what I was doing there, the way that kind of helped me to move on in that meaningful path and broaden our platform was to study design research to make sure that what we were creating was actually going to effectively meet the needs that were out there. And how do we know that we're meeting the needs? How do we know that we're meeting them effectively? And kind of how do we create that feedback loop? So that was when I went to study design research. So I've sort of just, I guess in my mind, been following this path of what feels like the meaningful thing to add to the thing that I'm doing now. How do I amplify the thing that I'm doing? So yeah, I mean, this was definitely the foundation for the path that I took. And then I just, at each turn when there was another choice to make, it was, how do I amplify this work? Because I think this is what I'll be doing forever. Like, this is just it. This is what I love. Every time I try and like, maybe this, maybe that. Nope, I just always come back to this.
Because this is sort of the family business, if you will. I mean, as much as a nonprofit can be a business.
I wish we were a business. We'd cover our budgets way better that way.
Unless I work in a nonprofit, I totally understand. Did you feel, was there external pressure to be doing this, or was it your own process that helped you, sort of back here?
Oh, definitely not external pressure. If anything, my parents were like, go, live in the world, leave us alone. No. They very much encouraged me to, I left Minnesota when I was 14. I went to high school in Chicago. After my year in Israel, they were like, oh, do you want to go back to Israel? Do you want to go to New York? And I was like, no, I just want to come home. I just want to work here. I just want to do this. So, and then coming back from 7 years in New York, again, my family was like, are you sure you want to leave? And are you sure, you don't want? And I was like, no, please let me come home. But this came about, and it just felt like the right time and the right moment, and a really good way to come back into something, and knowing so much about the organization, and they were looking for somebody for this associate director position, and that is something that really you need to know the organization. So originally I came on as the interim associate director to sort of help them shape the role, and then I was like, I'll be here for a few months, and then I'll decide if I want to go back. And then as soon as I got here, I was like, oh, I'm not going anywhere. So that it was a good way to ease in.
Did you ever have to ask your parents, why are you trying to talk me out of staying? Why are you encouraging me to leave?
No, I understood it. I really did. I'm happy that I spent the 7 years in New York that I did. I feel like I became a human being there.
How so?
I've spent a lot of time away from my family just for high school, but I think that just, from the age of like 23 and on is when you start to become kind of a little bit more yourself. And it was important for me to do that kind of in my own space. And because my family is so, involved in the community and so much a big part of the community, I think that my parents sort of knew that I was going to need that space to individuate and become my own person. And even now people meet me and my mom and they're just like, oh, clearly you guys are like the same person, which is wonderful. I think my mother is an incredible human being, and if I'm half the person she is, I'll be happy. But it's important. It was important for me to go through my own struggles on my own and figure out how to pay rent on my own, and learn how to use every single delivery service that exists because I don't want to leave my apartment. So it was good. It was good to have that time, and to be able to come back and also know that I'm stepping into this position on my own merit as someone who's worked in the field for 10 years, has my own credentials, has done it in other places. I'm not just walking in as Khan's daughter. I'm walking in as Layah Shagalow, who has my own experience, my own credentials, and I can do this. So, yeah.
And obviously, with the being in New York, a lot more kosher delivery options.
Oh my God, so many.
So that's, I got to imagine, with zero disrespect intended to the local kosher establishments.
Oh, they're wonderful. But there's
you got to be hurting a little bit.
So I keep saying, like, the only thing I miss about New York right now is this is a plug for them, even though I don't know if this is really the place to do it, but there's this small shop in Crown Heights, Brooklyn, where I lived, called the Boozery, and they sell alcoholic parve ice cream and sorbet, and it is the best thing I have ever had in my life, and it's like the one thing that I miss. I follow their Instagram story every day just to see like what new flavors they've created, and like when I go back to visit, that's the only place I want to go. I don't know if that's a good thing for me to say about myself as the associate director of a community organization, but if you're in New York, go to the Boozery.
Somebody who works in the nonprofit world also, I understand the need for
yes.
an adult beverage from time to time.
And it's just sort of couched in this lovely ice cream thing. So, it doesn't feel like you're drinking.
Right.
Until after you're done, and then it felt like, and then it feels like it. But yeah.
Yeah, there's nothing quite like that here.
No, maybe, hey, that's an opportunity. Any Jewish entrepreneurs out there?
Franchise opportunity,
I feel like that's a real market for that.
So what's the, in this new role, coming back here as a grown-up, what's sort of the biggest challenge that you're finding in resettling? Because I think a lot of people, I'm not a Minnesotan, but one of the things I've found living here for almost 18 years is that people, and I know this from my own family that have done this, they leave for several years, they're here, they leave for a while, and at some point, whenever that is down the road, they come back.
Oh, yes.
This boomerang effect with
it's
Minnesotans.
what we do. For the last 7 years when I was in New York, and I would meet people, I'd be with my friends, and people would say, oh, where do you live? And I would say, Minnesota. And my friends would freak out and be like, you live in New York, you've been here for 7 years.
They're expecting you to say like Crown Heights or
yeah,
whatever
Brooklyn, whatever, but
yeah.
no. I would have 5, 6 years into living in New York. Where do you live? I'd say Minnesota, and everyone would be like, no, you don't. You have an apartment in Brooklyn. So yeah, we come back. But honestly, it's hard to answer that question because coming back here has been so easy. It's been so wonderful. I feel like everyone's like, oh, what are you going to do? Like, there's so much less of a social life. I have been way more social since I got back.
Really?
I'm meeting so many wonderful new people. I feel like the young community here has grown so much. I'm meeting all these wonderful people, getting invited places, making new friends, something that is actually kind of hard to do in a bigger city. It's easier to feel a little bit more invisible. I feel like everyone's been so kind. My car died, my battery died in the parking lot of Whole Foods, and like 3 people popped out of their pickup trucks with jumper cables to help me out. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is a thing. So it's really it's been really nice. I think maybe something that's been a little bit of an adjustment is just remembering that people have changed and grown in the way that I have changed and grown, and that, the people that I remember from, 7, 10 years ago have also,
they're 7 and 10 years older also.
And they've had life experience. So just kind of catching up to where they're at and making sure that I'm not assuming that they are who they were then, because I wouldn't want people to do that to me. So
are they doing that to you?
I feel like I spent this real blip of time, those like 2 years, and then I was gone for 7, and I was gone for 5 years before those 2 years. So if you're listening, that was a lot of math. But so I feel like there's this part of me where there's people who've known me since I'm really little, and there's people who've been like, oh, you grew up here? I don't know who you are, because I've sort of, it's been a transient in and out, and kind of so many new people are here. So I don't know. I guess I'll see as I keep meeting people how they respond.
Is it nice to have those people that didn't know you grew up here and don't necessarily, it's obviously great to be associated with your family. Because obviously your mom has done.
My family's awesome, if I do say so myself.
No, and that's great. And your mom is great, and she's done great work here with Showery and building it up. But is it nice to sort of meet people who you didn't know and who didn't know you're from here and don't have maybe preconceived notions or thoughts about who you are?
Yeah, I'd say it is. It is really nice. It's nice to know that there's just a really broad community, and that there are so many people, and that there's so much more to learn and so many more people to know and help, and that there are people who are going to get to know me for me first. But it's also nice to know that there are those people that are just like the people that know you. There's something about the people you go to elementary school with that, like, they know a part of you that's just, no matter how much I want to say I'm this older, sophisticated person now, like, I am still 5 years old and jealous of my friends who could eat Dunkaroos and I couldn't, So that's it's there. Both sides have a really nice piece.
Well, excellent. Well, Layah, last two questions for you.
Okay.
Favorite Jewish holiday?
Oh, man. It's a kind of a toss-up.
Okay.
I think the answer is Shavuot. I think that's my favorite.
Really?
Not because of the dairy,
Okay.
because of the weather. I feel like it's like we're finally coming out of the winter, and like it feels like hope. And it's just 2 days, so like you can chill, and there's not like massive things. You don't have to eat like a pound of matzah, and you don't have to like blow the shofar or anything. So it's like a very chill holiday. I feel like I like that one. And Hanukkah. I mean, come on. There's just something about lighting candles and that beautiful like family element in the middle of the winter that I love. So
Also fried food.
yes. There's also a dairy element in Hanukkah too. So I don't know. Maybe there's like a link there subconsciously. Maybe. I don't know, but whatever.
And favorite Jewish food?
Oh man. This is difficult. Favorite Jewish food, like warm potato kugel, I think.
Oh.
I think that's it. Like, yeah, there's just something. I mean, if I had a little bit more time, I might be able to come up with something else, but I think it's just warm potato kugel.
Anyone's in particular? Can you pit relative against relative here?
Oh, no. No. As long as it's got the right balance of salt and pepper, we're good. Like, if it's too bland.
Seasoning is always key.
Yeah, I was like, not a bland potato kugel.
No.
Yeah, nothing too like that like feels like cholent-y either.
Yeah.
Like not too overdone, just that right, like a little bit mushy, piping hot, like potato kugel. That's the one.
All right. Well, Layah Shagalow, thank you very much for joining us this week, and Mazel Tov on the opening of the thrift shop.
Thank you so much.
Great
Thank
stuff.
you for having me, and this has been fun.
The Who the Folk podcast is a product of Jew Folk Inc. If you haven't yet, please subscribe, rate, and review the show. If you have a suggestion of someone who should be on the show, please email me at editor@tcjewfolk.com. Also, go to tcjewfolk.com/podcast to listen to our new shows, We Won, Let's Eat, the Jewish Food Podcast, and The Jews Are Tired, a weekly recap of Jewish news through an analytical lens. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week.